Honorable Joint Commissioner of Police, sir, Advocate Prashant Mali, sir, and ladies and gentlemen. Today I am going to talk about current trends in cybercrime. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I worked in Maharashtra Police for 24 years. The first cybercrime cell that was started for Maharashtra Police, I was one of the team members who started that cell in the year 2000 when the IT Act was enacted. I worked in the cell for 4 years, and after that also, because of my passion, I used to investigate the cases related to cybercrime for my own police station, also for other police stations as well. During my stint with the police force, I used to take trainings for police on various subjects related to cybercrime investigation. And even after my resignation from the force, I take training for police officers in investigation of cybercrimes. So my stint with the cybercrime started in the year 2001, and the surprising thing is that the first case that I investigated, that was related to hacking of a police website. The first case that was investigated by cybercrime cell was investigation of its own website, ccicmumbai.com. I still remember I was sitting in the office, in cyber cell office, on 7th of July 2001, and I got a call from a midday reporter, Bhupen Patel. He told me that your website is hacked, sir. So I was shocked. I said, this is the first time that I am getting the complaint, and that also about my own cyber cell website. So I immediately contacted the web developer, SK Infotech, and told him that such thing has happened, and please restore our website, but only after recovering the evidence. So we rushed to the Net4 India server farm. It was located in Worli. We go there, we collect the evidence, and then we restore our website in 2 to 3 hours of time. The website homepage which was hacked into, it was replaced by a page stating that this website has been hacked by Dr. Nuker and Russian hacker Dalebril. So we were surprised why Pakistani hacker Dr. Nuker will hack into our website. And then we start our investigation. We soon realized that the IP address that was used to hack our website, it did not belong to Pakistan, but it belonged to one of the ISP located in Mumbai. So we start investigating the case. We reached to a cyber cafe in Dadar, Shivaji Park, Osprey Enterprises Cyber Cafe. We raid the cyber cafe, and we come to know that there is no record of visitors maintained by the cyber cafe owner. Because during those times, no cyber cafe was insisted on keeping the visitors log. And unfortunately, our investigation stops there, because we don't know who visited that particular cyber cafe on that particular day. So what I do is, I go behind and take the web server logs of last 15 days from the date before that particular date. And I find out that there were various attempts made to our web server in the night, during the night. So we go and IP address is one thing which actually indicates from where that particular request or that attack has come from. And we investigated that, we found out there was another cyber cafe involved in this. There is a building opposite Portuguese church in Dadar. On the first floor of that building, there is a Nexus cyber cafe that time. So we investigated, we raided that place, and we caught the owner of cyber cafe. Then he discloses, spilled the beans, saying that there is one of my friend who used to sit in the cyber cafe for a long time. And this particular person who used to sit in the cyber cafe and try to access our website, he was nothing but a second engineering student of a college. Then we catch him. He actually had dared police to catch him. He gave an interview in the midday that police didn't catch me till now. He thought that police will not be able to catch him. But we make an effort and we catch him. So we catch 2 people in that, we arrest 2 people in that particular case. So that was the first case investigated by police in cybercrime, and we were successfully able to arrest those 2 persons. After that, I investigated another case related to UTI Bank website hacking in the year 2002. During that, I arrested one hacker from Ahmedabad Kalpesh Sharma. After I arrested him, I realized that he was just 10th standard pass. But he had done MCS and CCNA courses, and he used to sit long hours in front of the computer, and he used to search for free hacking tools. And using those tools on YouTube video. So that hacker was arrested from Ahmedabad. He was just 10th pass. And you will not believe, when we searched his computer, we found data from Pentagon. He had downloaded data from Pentagon server. So hacking was so easy. And the servers were not protected like the way they are today. So we'll run through these slides. Few of the cases Prashant Mali sir has already taken, so I'll just rush through those slides. I will not take them. A little infographics, we must know where we are standing in today's crime scenario. Maharashtra has, in 2015, in all 219 cases were registered in Maharashtra. 825 people were arrested. India stands 11th in the world in terms of cybercrime. Prashant Mali sir has already spoken about this particular case from Dombivli, so I will not repeat that. This particular person, he was also from Dombivli. I don't know why Dombivli is so much into all these dating sites. I mean, you will find so many groups in Dombivli related to dating sites. There are many sites related to Dombivli and the datings and all that. I don't know why it is like that. But this 12th class dropout, Kiran Bagwe, he was a resident of Dombivli. He posed as an IT engineer. When he posted his profile, he posted as an IT engineer. And once women completely trusted him, he used to take advantage of various, he used to give many excuses to knock out money from them. And then he himself used to go as assistant of Mr. Bagwe and used to collect this various stuffs like mobile phone, laptop from women, promising them that he will marry him. This is one of my friend's case. Actually, she is also from legal fraternity. In 2015, during December 2015, she receives an FB request, friend's request on her FB page. She accepts the request, and that fellow, he says that he is from US and he is ready to marry her. They became friends, and then he says that I'll marry you. I'll come to India, then we'll go and marry in church. So on 5th June, he deposits 27. He tells her that I'm coming for the marriage. I'm depositing 27,000 pounds in your account. When I come to India, we'll go to market and we'll buy stuff for our marriage. We'll buy a house, a nice, beautiful house. And one fine day, when the money is deposited, he says that I have deposited money into your account. There is a call from RBI, supposedly from RBI, asking her to pay the charges, Reserve Bank of India, conversion charges and tax, amounting to 3.59 lakhs. She deposits the amount in the account, and again he starts asking for 6.99 lakhs to be deposited for online upgradation. Then she realizes that this is a fraud. She comes to me asking me what to do now. I told her, you go to Malad police station and lodge your complaint. Then she asked me to prepare a draft. I prepare a draft and send it to her. Next day she calls me and tells me that I don't want to lodge the complaint. I said, why? She said, I am a lawyer. How can I lodge a complaint? What my clients will say. If I am getting cheated, my clients will not have faith in me. So I better forget about that money. So she doesn't lodge a complaint at all with the police. So there are so many cases wherein people, out of social stigma, thinking for fear of social stigma, they don't go to the police at all. We recently came across one such case. I'll just go through that case also. People are reluctant to lodge a complaint with police. So how do you identify fakes? They profess strong feelings within few couple of days, that how much they love you. They will sing songs for you, they will do whatever to please you. They will try to take you to Skype, because then they want to record entire thing on the Skype. Their profile on the internet dating website or Facebook page is not consistent at all. It is inconsistent. If you compare both the profiles, it is never consistent. The English is very poor because they are basically Nigerians hiding behind a beautiful face. After gaining your trust, they tell you an elaborate story and ask you for money, that they may met with an accident, there's some close family member is sick, is hospitalized, and they will ask you to send money. If you do send money, they will continue to ask you for more money. They don't stop anytime. These are the kind of fake profiles identified on the internet. And looking at these faces, people fall and they give money. So how do you identify? Basically, Nigerian wording is the identifiable aspect of the language. This is one phenomena now in Mumbai. In last 2-3 months, there are many cases related to sextortion. So how do they do it? Cyber criminals create fake profiles of attractive women on social networks. Cyber criminals invite victims to chat. Cyber criminals convince victims to move their chat to a platform with video capability via Skype so they can have cyber sex. Cyber criminals record explicit videos of the victims. Cyber criminals threaten to publicly expose the victim videos if they do not pay a hefty sum. Recently, 15 days ago, we were called by Cyber Police Station Bandra to provide legal assistance because of one particular case related to this kind of crime, sextortion. This particular fellow stays in Worli. One fine day he receives a request on his Facebook, friend request. And the lady or the girl who is sending the friend's request is a very beautiful, very good looking girl. So he can't resist and he accepts the friend's request. Soon on Facebook Messenger they start chatting. The moment they start chatting, she says that you come on Skype because such kind of private conversation we better do it on Skype. So second or third day night they start chatting on Skype, and this girl, she says that now let's do something funny. So he says okay, let's do it. He's very happy that a girl from front she is actually giving such a proposal. She says that let's be a little dirty. I'll remove my clothes, you remove your clothes. He starts doing that. The lady starts removing her clothes, this fellow starts stripping, and all this recording is recorded by that girl on a computer. All the Skype recording she records. The moment everything is done, she calls him again on the Skype and sends him a link of YouTube. Now she is telling him that, see, I am posting your video on the Skype on YouTube. I have your friends list because he has accepted her friend's request. So basically, she has all the Facebook contacts of this particular fellow. So she sends the list of Facebook friends also to him, telling him that, see, this is the friends list. This is your friends list. This is your family names and numbers. So I am going to distribute this video to your friends. He gets scared and he comes to Cyber Police Station. Then we also go there. We start investigating the case, and the IP belongs to somewhere in some city in Nigeria, some city close to Nigeria. What is that place called? Adjania. So this particular girl was not from US as she was stating. So we come to know that this is some Nigerian group working behind all this. So how do we prevent that? How to report this to police? What precaution needs to be taken before you lodge a complaint? You can block the contact on the Skype. First and foremost thing is, if you are being threatened to pay money, at least take the screenshots. If your Skype chat is not being recorded, at least take the screenshots so that you can use an evidence in case if you are following up a legal remedy. At least you have something in your hand to say that this has happened to me. So have screenshots recorded, store them on your hard disk, so that in future you can utilize them in case you are proceeding legally. Don't give them money because they are not going to do anything. If they are sending a video to YouTube, you can immediately lodge a complaint with YouTube and they will remove the video. Or you approach the police will send the request to YouTube and they will remove the video. Immediately discontinue any further contacts. Send the complaint to Skype and YouTube. Check all social media privacy settings. Don't allow any more access to your Skype account. Block that particular person's ID on Skype. And this is how you have to do the reporting on YouTube. When you watch a YouTube video, there is a thing called More. If you click on that, there is another tab which opens up, which is called Report. Once you click on report, you get this particular window in which you can actually report your abuse. The helpline is 24/7 open. So as soon as you report your abuse, they immediately take action. They remove the YouTube video. If it comes under the serious category, they will remove the video. Additional information you can add to this text box, particular text box, which will add gravity to your complaint, and then accordingly they will take action as per priority. On Skype also, you go to contacts, you can block that contact, and when that particular contact page opens, you have a column called report abuse. As soon as you report abuse, they will block that particular account. If it goes through police, it becomes very fast. This is also very prominent. These kind of cases are happening a lot in Mumbai. Basically, when we go to Cyber Cell Mumbai or Cyber Cell Thane, we find one other person having this particular complaint. A particular CEO or a director is abroad visiting the clients or going to attend meetings, and suddenly a mail comes to the finance officer or the accountant saying that please transfer this money to a particular account because I have some emergency. And the accountant, without asking any questions, he transfers the amount. This is how you check confirm code, how to avoid these particular scams. We recently investigated, we actually helped in investigation of a particular case related to Powai police station. This particular director was having all the access to the company's account information. One fine day, he suddenly goes to Chennai to attend a marriage by morning flight. By afternoon, his cell phone is switched off. Switched off means his SIM card stops working. So he doesn't know what to do. But since he is in a marriage, he couldn't do anything. He just keeps mum, and next day he travels back to Mumbai to find out what exactly happened. So evening he sent someone to Vodafone Gallery asking why my SIM card is not functioning. He comes to know that this SIM card has been changed in somebody else's name. He is still unaware that his account has been compromised. The very next day he sent someone to the bank regarding some bank transaction. The moment he reaches the bank, the manager tells him that 60 lakh of rupees have been transferred from your account on the day he had gone to Chennai. So he's surprised. He never transferred that money on that particular day, and how it happened. Then he correlated that my mobile stopped functioning, so I didn't get any OTP. Somebody transferred my number to somebody else's name, and somebody has transferred this particular amount. So we are called in to investigate. We start the investigation. We actually call for all IP records, server logs from where this transaction was actually carried out to find out. And we found out that on the next day, this fellow had gone to Chennai. The next day, in the morning at 9:30, somebody, by sitting in Dubai, transferred 60 lakh of rupees in 8 different transactions to 8 different accounts. 3 accounts belonging to SBI, 2 accounts belonging to ICICI Bank, 1 corporation account in Corporation Bank, and 1 account of Axis Bank. So this amount is already gone. Now how it went? We realized that this particular fellow's account information was already with somebody, either by way of phishing or through some insider. His username and password was known to somebody. The only way was how to get the OTP. For every transaction, OTP is sent. So one fine day, one particular person goes to Vodafone Gallery at Gaurbandar Road. He gives all the fake documents to Vodafone Gallery. The PAN card of that particular director, he already had a PAN card copy with him, and authority letter from the company. With these 2 documents in hand, he changes that SIM card in his own name. So all the OTP information that he is getting, that is sent to this company's account, the phone number, goes to the fraudster's phone number. That way they are able to carry out all the transactions. The similar kind of cases in the next few days are reported to Cyber Police Station, Mumbai also. One case gets registered to Pantnagar Police Station. So 7 to 8 cases in a span of a month's time happened in a similar modus operandi. So then investigation starts. We also start working with cyber crime police station of Bandra police station, and one of the team of cybercrime police station Bandra is successfully catches 3 people from Delhi. But when we start interrogating them, we came to know that there are 7 other Nigerians involved in this case. Somebody is sitting in Dubai, somebody is sitting in Chennai, somebody is in Delhi, and they all in liaison with each other, they carry out such kind of net frauds, internet banking frauds. So it is not only now Nigerians or Indians are working differently. Now they have become a team and they have started doing this kind of frauds. This is a graphical representation of what happened. Since there is a constraint of time, I will not go in detail. This is a team of Indians and Nigerians arrested in Delhi for the similar kind of transactions. Wishing and scheming is very common. Even sir has already spoken about it. You get a call on your mobile. There is nowadays they are using voice over IP technology. So you get a automated call asking you to call on a particular helpline number 1800 and the other digits. You hear a machine or an individual answering the call saying just like your bank would, the call cannot go through unless you clear verification procedure, and verification procedure involves keying in your important information such as credit card number, CVV2 number, expiry date and stuff like that, and they record all this information to transfer the amount from your account. Just like sir said, Jamatra is very famous for all this because 90% of traces go back to Jamatra. This is one of the districts in Jharkhand basically. It has become a pilgrimage site for police now. All across the country, police just barge in there and try to find out the person who is involved in phishing calls. But unfortunately, what happens is these fellows in Jamatra district, there are 2 specific areas from where not all Jamatra district is bad. There are 2 police station areas where these frauds are happening. Many phishing calls have been traced back to these particular places. The Airtel tower outside Kala Zaria village in Jamatra district sees 3000 outgoing calls per day. A normal tower takes hardly 700-800 calls in such areas. Dr. Triveni Singh is one of the UP based officer who works in cyber cell basically. And he says that his team is actually currently analyzing 2000 phone numbers linked to call center frauds, and 90% of them originate in Jamatra. How it works in Jamatra basically? What happens there? A team of 2 youngsters, one with basic mobile phone and one with smartphone. You must be aware about how e-wallets work, right? In order to transfer money, they use e-wallet facility provided, because e-wallet you just need a mobile number to create e-wallet. With one e-wallet, you can carry out a transaction of 10,000 rupees because it's not full KYC account. So you can carry out, so you get a duplicate SIM card and you can open e-wallet, and using e-wallet and stolen credentials, you can transfer that amount into e-wallet, and from e-wallet you can transfer into any other bank account, because directly you can't transfer with credit card because you don't have credentials to do that. Basic phone is used to make the call. At the same time, another person sitting next to him, he opens the smartphone, creates an e-wallet, and as soon as the information is told to him, the phone number, then OTP and every information that he gets through a phishing call, he enters that information and immediately transfers the money. The moment before you cut your phone, the amount is already transferred from your account. Then from e-wallet, it goes to making e-commerce purchases also, electronic goods, electronic items, or transferring money into some third person's account which is owned by these fellows basically. They give a little amount of money to them and then withdraw money and commit the fraud. They get together in the morning, split into groups of 2 and 3 and sit amidst the bamboo to make calls from one of the villages in Jammu. This modus operandi is similar to Nigerians. Even in Nigeria, this is the way they operate. They sit in groups, they make calls, they send emails, and they get information and immediately transfer the amount. So they have learnt a lot from Nigerians actually. He's a SBI service manager of the Karmata branch in that particular region. He said that we'll feel about rupees 5 to 10 lakhs in every machine, ATM machine daily, and that's such. This much amount is removed every day in that particular area. So how many frauds they must be committing? You can just guess. Thank you very much.